When Mr. Pandaria Classic comes out, well, actually, it should be during the pre-patch. Probably my favourite system is going to come in, and on the basis you've read the title and looked at the thumbnail, you probably know what I'm going to talk about, and that's pet battles. Now, of course, if you played back in the day or you play retail, you'll know exactly how pet battles work. But for many people who started back in 2019 and have played all the way through to now, it might be a foreign concept to you. So I'm going to talk through the basics, why I like it, and actually some pets that you should try and get right now in Cataclysm, because if you plan on doing pet battles, they will help you out in the long run. So firstly, what are pet battles? Well, it's fairly basic. Just think Pokemon, but in-game. In each zone, you'll find different levels of pets to fight, and in low-level zones, you'll only be fighting one pet. When you go up to the more mid-level old zones, so places like Perilous, Thousand Needles, Dustwallow Marsh, those sort of zones, just in his example, you'll start fighting two pets. And then when you move upwards to places like Ongoro, Silphus, or even AQ, you're going to be fighting the full 3 pets at a time. So you'll unlock slots, so you'll be able to use one pet to start with, then 2, then 3, and of course you'll start fighting 3 at a time as well. My ice machine's making a lot of noise. Now, if you're in it to try and get player XP, you get maximum player XP from doing a 3v3. But you are going to have to level your pets up before you've got pets high enough to actually go to these zones, because when you look at the zones, they show you the pet level. So using Ongoro Crater as an example, they're pet level 15 to 16, whereas if you go to Mount Hyjal, they're going to be level 22 to 24. So ideally, you always want to have your 3 pets at that lower level of the bracket. In terms of the UI, this is what it will look like. You'll have your pet collection down the left-hand side, which you can then filter. You can filter out certain pet families, sources, or you can sort by rarity, level, name, and type. And of course, there will be add-ons, like the one I personally use in retail at the moment is called Rematch, where you can save loaded pet battle teams. You can organize teams and drag and drop with scrollable lists. There'll inevitably be weak auras and stuff like that. So the base UI is pretty standard, but I do see something like Rematch definitely making its way to Classic. But with that aside, the things that you need to understand is all the different pet families. So you've got things like Beast. Now, Beast will take more damage from mechanical abilities, but less damage from humanoids. You've got Dragonkin, which will take more damage from humanoids, but less damage from flying. Mechanical will take more from elemental, but less from magic. Now, you can look through all of the pet schools and exactly which ones are best to use in which situation, but ideally, depending on what you're actually about to start battling, you want to make sure that you're using the counter pet. So if I was fighting a beast, I would want to be using mechanical, just so you're doing big damage to them because they'll be weak. Something that's important to note about it when it comes to families is when you look at, for example, my Chunky Boy, which is a mechanical, it doesn't just do mechanical abilities. So something like a mini Mind Slayer, which is a magic pet, it will take extra damage from Dragonkin abilities. So if you had something like a mechanical pet that's taking less damage from magical abilities, but happens to have a Dragonlin ability, like the mechanical Panda and Dragonling, then not only are you going to be doing more damage to them, you're also going to be taking less damage as well. So it's always important to look at how you can best match up and actually do more damage, but whilst taking less damage. And that's not always possible, don't get me wrong, but it's just good practice to get into. When you're in the open world, the majority of the things you're going to see, especially throughout the old zones, are going to be beasts or critters anyway. So having a good amount of beasts and mechanical yourself is going to be very helpful while you're leveling. They do become far more varied as you get to the higher level zones, so having a good mix and leveling multiple pets is obviously worthwhile. The reason it's worthwhile as well is you're actually going to get a quest which is going to send you round to beat all of the pet tamers. Now, the pet tamers, you're going to get a bag which you can open and get things like pet bandages and sort of toys and things. Nothing of any great use, don't get me wrong, but from a completionist aspect for the achievements, for the gold and all of that, and actually to unlock dailies, you're going to want to get it done. But these pet battle trainers will have various different pets, and you'll be able to just use different loadouts depending on which one you're fighting. What I can't stress enough is all of this is purely optional. You're going to get no player power from any of this. It really does just come down to whether you enjoy this kind of gameplay, which I absolutely do, because I like the collection aspect, which is actually a really interesting one to think about, because not all the pets just come from fighting pets. Some of them come from raids, from dungeons, from open world. So actually going around and collecting all of these pets becomes a little mini game in itself. Now, another system which we are going to get into, but not really in this video, is about bonus loot rolls. And you need lesser charms of good fortune to be able to get these bonus loot rolls. And actually, Pet Battles is a good source of it, but I'll just throw that in there. This also does evolve over the course of Mr. Pandaria as they actually add stuff for things like Isle of Thunder and Timeless Isle, where you're actually going to be able to get the Celestial pets that come from actually doing the Tournament of the Celestials, which is quite challenging, but definitely worth it because these pets are absolutely amazing. Now, back to the pets themselves. As you level them up, you're going to unlock abilities. At level 1, you'll start with just one basic ability, then you unlock your next ability at pet level 2, and then 4. And then after that, they become optional. So you're going to get 10, 15, and 20. You're going to get 3 new abilities. Now, in the pet panel, you can switch between which you want in each slot. This ultimately will come down to what you're fighting or what your preference is. But it's worth noting that just because it's a level 20 ability doesn't actually mean that it's going to be better than the first ability that you unlock in that 3rd slot. So always pay attention, have a read, work out what's the best for you. But ultimately, there is a list of really what the best pets are in MoP, because obviously it's a solved game. And some of these pets I even remember using back in Mr. Pandaria myself, in original Mr. Pandaria, not on private servers. So I do want to talk about some of those, because some of them you can actually go out and get now, and some of them are a little bit of a grind, so it'll give you something to do in your downtime during Cataclysm. Before we get onto that though, the actual fights themselves, there's only a couple of things that are important. You'll see the attack power of the pet, but the speed one is probably a little bit more important. Now, whoever's speed is highest will go first, and going first is a big advantage, which is exactly why certain pets have abilities that increase their speed. So for the next couple of rounds, you get to go first with that pet. Now again, with add-ons, I'm sure it's going to be extremely easy to see what pets do, so the pets that you're actually fighting. But if you want to get a quick overview of what the pet's using, if you right-click on their panel, you can then view it in your pet tab, and then you can see what abilities they're using and what they actually do. When you're first starting out with pet battles, this can be really, really useful, because if they've got quite a big ability that's got a long cooldown and you see them used it, then you know they're not going to be able to use it for a few rounds, so you can start to predict what's going to happen next. And I would say that's the basics. From your main capital city, you'll learn the ability to be able to pet battle straight away, and then that's just going to send you out to level a pet for a couple of levels. Then you're going to go and fight one of the low-level trainers, and it just guides you around. I absolutely don't need to tell you how to just follow a quest chain, because it's pretty basic. And then you can go around at your own free will and just collect whatever pets you want. But like I say, some of these pets will come from raid bosses, and many was actually added to old raid bosses. So now we can talk about my favourite bit, which is what pets are actually going to be really, really good in MoP, and what ones can you get now? Well, one of them that's actually really strong is one that you're not going to be able to get now, but it's a prime example of where a pet was actually added to an existing raid. So that's the Anubisaf Idol. Now, this comes from Emperor Veclor in Anchorage. The reason this pet's strong in particular is because it's a humanoid. So humanoids recover 4% of their max health if they dealt damage this round. They also take less damage from critters, but more damage from undead. Unfortunately, there's not really that many undead mobs out in the world, or pets, I should say pets. But when you look at the various different types of damage that it can deal, it's got humanoid damage, it's got mechanical damage, it's got flying damage, it's got a magic defensive, and it's even got an elemental big 4-round cooldown damage ability. So it's just got so much that it can do depending on the fight, and as long as you're not against an undead, this can be incredibly strong. And like I say, because there's so many critters out in the world, this is one that you're going to want to get hold of, I'd say in the pre-patch. Like as soon as the pre-patch hits, boom, just start going in AQ until you get it. There'll be no pet battling required, it just drops from the boss. Now, I'm only going to include pets that you can get now. This was just an example of one that you can't get, but comes from a raid. Now, the first one would be Clockwork Gnome. The same reason we spoke about earlier, the reason Clockwork Gnome is particularly strong is because of the various different schools that it's got. It is mechanical, so when it dies, it comes back to life, returning with 20% health, which can be the difference between winning a pet battle and losing it. But not only has it got mechanical abilities and even the ability to repair itself, it's also got elemental abilities being Railgun and even humanoid abilities. So some of these pets that you can grab now, where they've actually got multiple schools or multiple damage types, however you want to word it, definitely worth getting hold of. And this is the first one. There's still a few more. The 90 Dark Moon prize tickets. There's 6 different pets that you can get at Dark Moon Island right now. And this is actually really good reason to do Dark Moon Fair events, to be able to get your prize tickets, because 2 of them are particularly good. And that's the Dark Moon Zeppelin, which again is a mechanical, but it's also got a flying ability and elemental as well. And the Dark Moon Tonk, which is mainly mechanical abilities, but they're really strong mechanical abilities, although it does have a charge which is actually humanoid as well. And the last one really that I would say is worth getting hold of now, and while I'm only giving you 4 or 5 tops that you should go and get, these are the highest rating on a Warcraft Pets website, which for anybody who used to do pet battles quite seriously back in the day, you probably use this website quite a lot, and these are the highest ones community rated that you can get hold of right now. But if you like fishing, the magical crawdad, which you can get from Terakar Forest, which you may or may have not done already for the achievement, is an aquatic pet which has a 50% max health heal and a nice mix between beast and aquatic damage. Now, there genuinely is tons more that you could work on getting now. In fact, you could literally log on Cataclysm, look through any pets that you're missing, and honestly, just start working on grabbing them, because the more options you've got, the better time you're going to have, the more pets you're going to have to level, which is why in Classic, I am actually going to be focusing over the next couple of months on grabbing as many of these pets as I physically can. But I feel like that's a pretty good outline on what to expect from pet battles. I will be doing lots of videos talking about the different pet compositions you can use for things like the Celestial Tournament, or even the sort of high level hard dailies where you're going to want to do them every day, especially if you like pet battles and you're working on getting celestial charms like I was talking about before. So definitely stay tuned for those, and if you enjoyed the video, I'm going to say like and subscribe. It's members only, but it will be made public, so depending on when you're watching it, depends on what it currently is. But if you enjoyed it, again, like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.